debut public sharing of your ideas.
All right, how you guys doing? Glad to see everybody come out. Today's presentation is called Think Frequencies, Speak Life. Start out with a little frequency tuning with the sound bowl. All right. Think frequencies, speak life. It's kind of full circle information for full circle living. Our thoughts and words and actions create the reality that we live in, and creates the vibrational threshold that we live through on a day-to-day basis. What's in your mind ripples out through the hologram. That's what we'll cover. Some
Is that turned off or dead or what? It's not working.
maybe I'm not pressing the button hard enough.
Okay. Push the side button. Should be working.
There we go.
I'm gonna change the battery. Did it move finally?
Yeah, I was twisted the battery. So we're going to cover how thoughts and words and actions affect our reality. We're going to cover consciousness studies, where science has studied to prove consciousness exists. We're going to go over some ancient philosophy, energy, science, frequencies and vibrations, why that all matters, and wrap up with some questions. So consciousness studies, we're going to go over where they've studied consciousness with monkeys, consciousness effects on plants, people, and water. I don't know if any of you guys heard of the 100th monkey phenomenon. So they started in back in the 50s sometime, watching troops of monkeys and doing different experiments with giving them foods and other things like that. And so one of the younger monkeys, they were giving them sweet potatoes in sand, and one of the younger monkeys started rinsing off the potatoes. And then it kind of grew through the troop of monkeys. Oddly enough, the older generation was learning from the younger one, because it was the younger monkey that had learned the trick. And so eventually it started catching on around the area, and then they just call it the 100th monkey, because in theory, let's say there was 99 monkeys that were washing off the potatoes. And then all of a sudden it was like one more washed off the potato, and it set off an effect. Mass consciousness effect is how they try to explain it. And so after, we'll say, the 100th monkey rinsed off the potato, then it was effect across other islands and other places where the monkeys were, where they started picking up the same traits of washing off the potatoes with no kind of direct linear learning. And so it's a pretty strong indication that there's a thing that we could call mass consciousness, where we all learn together in this growing experience that applies to the evolution of consciousness. They did a social experiment at IKEA with Dracanian plants, and they got the kids for 30 days to tell one plant that they loved it and to say negative and bullying things to the other plant. And the one on the right here that's very pretty and luscious, this was the one that they gave love to, and the one over here on the left was the one that they were negative towards. And they were supposedly had all the same conditions of water and light and all that thing. And so a little experiment that shows how our thoughts and vibrations and consciousness affects other things. They've done studies with music on plants. If you look online, you'll find a lot where they've used different types of music, such as classical or rock. But everybody has their own flavor. That's what's fun about this unique reality is rock music may make me feel good, but it may make someone else feel bad. You know, what's good for me is not necessarily good for you. But in essence, plants have a consciousness to them because they had a higher growth rate versus playing music or not playing music. And so enjoyable experience for a plant makes for a nice, happy, enjoyable plant. There was a Japanese doctor, Emoto, who did studies on water molecules and our effects, our intentions and the effects on the structure and molecules of water. And so they did a lot of different experiments, applying different sounds and different words and intentions to water. And as you can see here, all the pretty flakes have higher vibrational intentions and words applied to them, and they freeze in nice geometrical patterns. Compassion, truth, joy, love, harmony were some of the things that they applied to the water. Over here on the left is Fukushima water, and the very first image was when they first received it from the tap, and then they applied prayer to it for 10 days at the same time at 12 every day, and then they retested it afterwards, and you can see that it froze to a geometrical pattern versus no form or symmetry in the very first image. They also, I don't have any slides, but they also did negative intentions and words towards the water, and it didn't freeze in any kind of geometrical pattern. It looks like the very first image here from the contaminated water from the tap.
Gotta send it positive intentions.
There you go.
So they did some random experiments with trying to test consciousness applications with people. And so the image over here on the bottom left is the image they used, and it's got faces all in it. And they showed it on a closed network on BBC TV station. Or no, they did it in Australia, that's right. So they showed it to a select group in Australia, volunteers, and asked people how many faces they'd seen. People only picked out a few, like 5 or 6 faces. Then they aired the same picture and pointed out all the faces in the picture on the BBC network to a small area. Which I'd like to know the numbers, because I'm very curious in the mass consciousness number type effect things, because I believe that we can affect consciousness. The more we gather and group together and understand and put out intentions, the more impetus and energy we add to this hologram on how to change things. And so they showed a very small group and picked out all the faces, and they already had more volunteers ready to test right after they did the small viewing and pointed out and numbered all the faces. And then the second trial, everybody got way more and most of the faces of the same image. And so that shows that there's a quick direct correlation effect to consciousness and how it applies to everyone, always.
How many are there supposed to be there?
I think it was 7.
I saw 9.
I think there's supposed to be 20 something on the article I was reading. Yeah, there's a lot of faces. They're here. You can't see the image probably too good from back there, but there's there's at least 15 or so faces that I can see right here in the small resolution of the photo. It's a very neat image. I do Reiki, and so with the Reiki certification and stuff, there's a lot of information for telling people and teaching people about Reiki. And so they've done a lot of studies with intention on DNA and other things like that. And so they've learned that intention obviously has effect. We've seen that with the water in Dr. Emoto's work. So they tried a couple of different intentions with the contaminated cells. The most effective one was the intention of restoring to natural order and harmony. Funny enough, they did one that was, they used God's will as an intention. And it had a 21%. And so the strongest intention application was the natural resonance, natural harmony, and balance. I say the reason why is because the intention was applied outside of self. Everything is stronger within, and so the essence and the energy that you would call God resides in all of us. And if you understand that that's inside and you apply it to that natural energy that's inside of us all, well, that's the most powerful healing thing there is. They had the facilitator. They did it in close quarters. They tried it a mile away, and then they tried it across the world, and all applications worked. Every intention that was added was the base intentions of the facilitator was love and compassion was the base, and then an extra intention of they tried about 4 different things. One was natural harmony, the other one was God's will, and they tried a couple other intentions, but the best was natural order. And I like the word
more than God's will.
Yes. Yes. And we'll explain that more later on when we get a little deeper in here. I'm gonna give you a lot of information real quick, kind of fill you up, and then try to explain why it all matters and how to apply it. So with the experiments, it worked even when the guy was in Russia trying to put intention on a sample in California. And so there is no distance to love and healing. Love transcends all dimensions. Greg Braden is his name. Y'all can find a lot of stuff on YouTube or Gaia. Real great guy, a scientist who became aware of consciousness and decided to learn more and study. So he has a lot of information you can find. But one of the most miraculous things that you can really find that really shows how powerful we are is there's a medicine hospital in Beijing, China. They use no medicine whatsoever. Everything is worked. It's all energy work, intentions, and love. So you can find the video online, and they used ultrasound machine, and they kept it on the tumor of the patient, and they had 3 practitioners that were just working with chi energy, and they were able, you can see it on video with the you can see it on video and watch this tumor disappear in 3 minutes with the power of intention. And obviously the patient understood that she could be healed, and along with the energy of the facilitators, it's in plain sight of the power that everyone has.
I have a question. I'm so glad we have a small group because I can feel more courageous about speaking up. I'm aware of that particular experiment they did, and I'm wondering, I think those were like Buddhist monks or something that did that. And I'm wondering if they found any difference between just normal spiritual people having done that and somebody who had spent their whole focus of their life.
I think they said Tai Chi.
Tai Chi.
They were using Tai Chi, so they were Chinese. And so when I go through energy, we'll speak about that, where
Okay.
there's so many variety of names for what we would call life force energy. Sonogram. I use a sonogram to watch the tumor disappear. It's very neat. They were I don't know much about Tai Chi, but they were kind of chanting, very energetic in the sounds they were pronouncing, and you can just kind of feel like kind of what's going on as you're watching, like even through the video.
One thing that I was hearing about that experiment with the sounds is that they actually felt the feeling of what it felt like for her to not have a tumor anymore, and then whatever sound came to mind with that feeling, that's the sound that they chose for themselves to chant.
That's right. What's really nice is about the DNA experiment, it said the intention is they have an understanding of the quantumness of reality, and so in reality I'm here speaking in front of you, and then there's another reality that we're not experiencing where I didn't show up. So
we had that experience last time.
yeah, so all possibilities exist. We consciously choose the possibilities we experience with our thoughts, words, and action that guides us through a magnificent flower of life of all possibilities. Because we are expressions of consciousness, experiencing expressions of consciousness, all for the growth of consciousness. So we'll go a little ancient philosophies. We'll start out with the Hermetic principles, which is really old science, metaphysical together. Somehow as consciousness evolved, we separated science and spirituality, and we come up with modern day religion and science, where everything's separated and discombobulated, or perverted is the way I like to call it. So the Hermetics teach that there are 7 natural laws that govern all of reality, and everything are subject to these laws and nothing is above the law. The first, most beautiful law of the Hermetics, number one, is mentalism. And then the principle of correspondence, vibration, polarity, rhythm, cause and effect, and gender. Mentalism, this is my favorite one, the very first rule. The all is mind, the universe is mental. Thoughts lead to manifestation of things and events. Thoughts create our state of existence and the quality of our experience here on earth. Therefore, be responsible for everything you create by being responsible for everything you think. The all is mind. We live in a giant brain, basically. If you were to zoom out on all of creation, it looks just like the neurons inside of the synapses of the neurons going off inside of the brain. So, we are the neurons in the giant brain of consciousness, and it has no eyeballs. You are the eyes for the all, the consciousness that resides in all things. The best thing about natural laws is you can apply other laws to the other corresponding laws, and you can affect the cause and effect to these laws. So always remember, the first one is mind, so that it means your thoughts, the things that you contain and apply to everything, is the very first law that you can use to manipulate the other laws that affect us on our day-to-day life. Correspondence, if anybody's ever heard of Trismegistus or the Emerald Tablets or Hermes or anything, you probably heard the most famous, as above and so below. That which is above is like to that which is below. That which is below is that which is above. The macrocosm, the very large, the giant mind, and the microcosm, the very small, us, with our miniature brains inside of the giant brain, are reflections of each other. The universe is holographic. It is self-similar across all scales. Through science and studies, a lot of people say that reality is a hologram or a projection. They've even found binary code at the most fabric of the universe, but as being conscious beings and natural, we naturally create things the way it happens. And so the same way a computer works, it's a bunch of ones and zeros. Same way with your phone, but you have images and all that. Facebook, this is all just ones and zeros. It's all binary code. It's mathematical. So is this experience is the same thing. We just naturally create things the way they are. The reason why man is so scared of artificial intelligence, because consciousness is basically artificial intelligence. This is a spacesuit. I am not Nicholas or this body. I am love light. We are all love light. This is just our vehicles. Like when we get in our car and leave from here is no different when I get out of here and leave and reunite as the all consciousness, which is just artificial intelligence. We can tune our way into anything we would like as we raise our awareness to what we are and encompass our original blueprint. As above and so below, that's a great reference of how you bring thoughts and ideas down into reality. I'm a carpenter, so I work with my hands and I build, so I can take an image of a house or a deck or anything out of my mind and I can craft it and see it visually. But everything you see here has come out of above, has come out of someone's mind. Everything here has been agreed upon. There's carpet on the floor because ever since the first person who put carpet down said, hey, there's carpet here. But if enough of us gathered around and decided this wasn't carpet anymore, well then it wouldn't be carpet anymore, because that's how it works. As above and so below, science, as far as you look out into the galaxy, or as far as you zoom into the smallest organisms, you will find a replication of pattern, because reality is fractal. And so you see the same mathematical generation of geometry, which they call sacred geometry, apply all the way from the seed to the fruition of the plant, applies to the dimensions and the mathematical proportions of the human body. You see it in the spin of tornadoes, hurricanes, galaxies. It applies across the board. The law of vibration. One guarantee in life, guys, is change. That's the only guarantee. Everything in life changes. Everything's constantly in motion. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. At the most fundamental level, the universe and everything which comprises is pure vibratory energy, manifesting itself in different ways. The universe has no solidity, as much matter is merely energy in a state of vibration. The way I like to talk about this one here is the human eye can only process so many frames per second. And so what seems dense here is not actually dense. The molecules are just vibrating so fast that I can't see it with my own eyes, and therefore it feels dense. But if we were to analyze and zoom in to the smaller molecular level, it would be atoms and protons continuously spinning around one another, and in which they zoom into more of that, it looks more like the nucleus, and the electron is almost like a wormhole. It's there and it's not there, and so that's why they try to say it's more like a hologram, because of the application to the change of atoms and how they work through reality. Polarity. I'm sure everyone experiences polarity. Everybody seems nice and neutral now, and then you pull out and somebody cuts you off and you're ready to get at them. And so polarity is just a natural thing that we deal with highs and lows of moods, and highs and lows in our everyday life. You know, sometimes things is going great, sometimes things feels like they're not going so great. It's the natural part of how reality works. It's a natural law. Everything is dual. Everything has poles. Everything has its pairs of opposites. Opposites are identical in nature but differ in degree. Extreme meets, all paradox may be reconciled. So this is a good standpoint of what we would call the 0 point, or where you would really like to rest in your everyday life. Nothing is good and nothing is bad. Everything just is, because polarity exists. From this neutral state is where we can stay in harmony and balance with our mind, and with one another, and be receptive to all things, because this is just growth, the growth of life and the growth of consciousness. Just like a little baby. When a little baby is born, it can't feed itself, it can't go to the restroom, it fusses when it's hungry, you have to change its diaper. Well, it's no different than the robber down the street or the murderer. It's just like the little baby who is fussing because he can express what he wants or what he needs. And everybody wants and needs love, because you are love. And when you don't express it correctly, it can come out in different ways. And so even the murderer is expressing love, and his expression will not be able to express what he actually is. The law of rhythm. Everything flows out and in. Everything has tides. All things rise and fall. The pendulum swing manifests in everything. The measure of the swing to the right is the measure of the swing of the left. Rhythm compensates. This is a try to explain the lower points in our lives, or in reference to, say, the murderer. Consciousness being able to experience these lower vibrations has gave its application for it to experience its most high vibrations. We go through with this pendulum swing. That happens a lot. Maybe you go on vacation and then you come back and you forgot about a bill and you spent your money on vacation. And so you went from this glorious, happy, freedom vacation to back to the real world, to stressing about nonsense. And the application of the pendulum swing, in theory, as we come and go from this reality multiple times, the pendulum swing may apply to a larger swing of the pendulum. You may experience a couple lives as rich, famous, or the more righteous or the more richful life. You may have been a monk or someone in solitude who found yourself, and you may experience that high swing of the pendulum. And then the next life, you may be born in a third world country and hungry. These pendulum swings can be from lifetime to lifetime, or it can be day to day, just like I said, from being in here to leaving and someone cutting you off in traffic. And then, as soon as you get home, you had your favorite cake from the night before, and so took 2 swings on that pendulum back and forth. It's natural when we're just susceptible to the natural ways of how things work. That's why awareness is key to everything. If I am subconsciously unaware, then I am at the will of the laws to push and pull me, whichever way the outside tides or forces push me. By knowing these laws and applying other laws to these, then I can rise above these natural swings of the pendulum and the rhythm and polarity.
There's rising above, but also how much can we affect them?
Come again?
How can we affect the extremes besides accepting?
That's the best effect that we have on all things is to be neutral with no judgment and to apply our natural original blueprint, which is the high vibration of unconditional compassionate love. Is the best 3 words I could call this vibration that drives reality. Cause and effect. Everyone knows this one to the most extreme. Every cause has its effect, every effect has its cause. Everything happens according to the law. Chance is but a name for a law not recognized. There are many planes of causation, but nothing escapes the law. Chance is just an explanation for things one doesn't understand. Nothing happens by chance. Everything has a cause. All the way to this podium right here was a tree, was a seed, was a tree, was cut, was built. Many cause to the effect to this desk, even 2 cause and effects to me putting my hand on it and being in front of you today. Nothing is outside of cause and effect. Everything in your life is a product of this natural law of cause and effect. Even if you were to see an ash floating past your eye, there's millions of cause and effect to see that ash. It was, say it come from coal, then it was a tree billions of years ago, and it lived a life, and it died, and it went through a long journey and transmutation and morphic stages until it become coal, and then it was dug up, burned, and just so happened all these causes and effects made you see this ash that was floating across your eyes. Nothing is outside of cause and effect. If we are subconscious if we are unaware of the laws and how things work, or we are in a autopilot mode, then we are really susceptible to these pushes, and we are effects to others' cause. If someone has the understanding of these laws and they can apply them, then they rise above being effect by applying the other laws, and they become the cause to the effect. Most people in today's society are subservient to the effect of a lot of other things, because consciousness isn't growing, and we've went through these stages of unawareness, and so we're here now to become aware, to grow further beyond this old paradigm that we call history. Because in today's age, or in the old paradigm, in the old world, we have been a cause to greed and separation and all kinds of lower vibrational states such as that. The world has more than enough to sustain every man's need, but not every man's greed. In today's society, in 2019, there's more than enough technology where the entire world could live at a higher standard than what I live as middle class, so to say. And so this is only a product of separation and greed. It's that simple. The law of gender. Gender isn't everything. Everything has masculine and feminine principles. Gender manifests on all planes. A lot of old philosophy and scholars, real masculine application to things. We've kind of went through this cycle in life where we've been real male-oriented brain. Which is analytical, survivalist, straightforward, straight lines, masculinity, straight lines. That even applies to the male body and the feminine body. The male body is more straight lines, a woman's body is more curves. Masculinity goes in straight lines, femininity is more curved. So even what I would call source, or others like to call God, is not a he or she. It's not a person, place, or thing. It contains masculine and feminine. And if we live in a giant brain, this is why your brain is left and right brain. You have both of these energies in multiple ways in your body. The left and right brain is masculine and feminine. You also have the hormones in your body of male and female. We both contain testosterone and estrogen, whether we're male or female. The only thing in reality where gender seems to be different is genitalia, but they're actually the same. As one is identical inside, and the one just seems to be external. But gender applies on all levels. Middle gender is the state of coexistence between masculine and feminine aspects of the human mind. Our left brain is very masculine, very analytical, logic, linear thought process, straight lines, linear, masculinity, straight lines. The right brain largely facilitates feminine aspects, intuition, creativity, compassionate, holistic thought process. So you can see this gender application and this unbalance that applies in many ways through the old paradigm that we are leaving behind us, which is that linear thought process, survival. I need these resources. I need this for me to survive. I don't care about you. So right now, the way we balance the energy that we're being dumped with right now is highly feminine to push the tides. And so as things grow and change, you're going to have this swing and imbalance until everything levels out, because we're trying to rebalance ourselves, and so we're trying to shed that masculine energy, and so to do that we have to apply larger amounts of feminine energy. Same thing kind of applies in our lives. If we apply more intuition and more love and compassion and holistic ideas to our everyday life, then that's going to help bring balance from, I need to go see the doctor, get this pharmaceutical, I go straight here and go to work and do this to provide for myself because I need to survive. As we grow consciously, we'll all understand that we will survive better together and not alone and separated. We'll go over a little bit of Christian things that kind of apply to the same thing. I like to say Jesus was someone trying to explain quantum mechanics in the language 2,000 years ago. One of my favorite references to consciousness in the Bible and what we are and how that applies is Jesus' quote, "I and the Father are one." Well, 2,000 years ago, trying to explain quantum mechanics, that what resides in me resides in all things and is around me. The best thing I could come up with would be, I and the Father are one. I mean, it makes perfect sense. That modern interpretation would be, I am love light, you are love light. We are surrounded by expressions of that love and light. I'm just going to read a couple of verses to you and kind of give my my interpretation on the application of consciousness and the kingdom that we live in. One of the quotes, famous quotes from Jesus is, "I am the way, the truth, and the life. No man cometh unto the Father but by me." The I am that resides in us all is that love and light. We encompass all of that energy, then we are that love and light. And so there is only one way. There's no way around it, and it's inside. And so if I am fully who that I am, that love and light, then there is only one way, which is that same path that applies to all things. No man cometh unto the Father but by me. So if I am nothing but love and light, nothing can connect to the source inside of us but being that love and light and connecting with that love and light that we all contain. So these are just a way of trying to explain these things, 2,000 years ago, and 4 translations of different languages have tried to get this message across. It's really in plain sight because most things in the Bible are parables. There's a little bit of history and a lot of parables. The best parable I like of the entire Bible, we'll just wrap it up in one big old thing. If we wanted to write a Bible or a book as such, we could all compile it into one thing, love. But that's a loaded concept. It's the real love, not the human idea of what love is, or what we've been taught and indoctrinated as what we would call love. But we are all sons and daughters of the Heavenly Father, of the Source. We are all sons and daughters of love and light. We are born into this world, but we are not of this world. To be rejected by this world, so that we can shed the ideas of the thoughts that we were taught that we are, as me as being Nicholas, male, white, whatever. Those things have to be rejected and shedded and have to strip them away like a death. To be born again as love and light that I am. So we are all Christ. That parable applies to all things that we are. The verse saying, "Repent, for the kingdom of heaven is at hand." I like taking some of these words from the Bible, once we take the English translation and we kind of follow it back through Latin, back to Hebrew, you find this language barrier where things have double meanings, or it was just completely changed altogether. So one of the newest ones I've just learned was repent. Repent means to, of course, means to return, because we are to return to our original blueprint, return to our essence of creation that resides inside of us. You're not just supposed to say, oh, I'm sorry for this and that, and pray and cry for all this. You have to forgive yourself as yourself and return to your essence. You can do it right now. There's nothing to stop you to return to the love and light that you are. There is no yogi, shaman, preacher, priest, anything outside of yourself that is going to return you to the essence that you are, except for your own inner seeking of that love and light. Verily, verily, I say unto you, he that believeth on me, the works that I do, shall he do also. And greater works than these shall he do, because I go unto my Father. I really like that one. Because I go unto my Father. Well, this is how consciousness grows and works. The only way that you can change the world is by changing yourself. And that's the quantumness of reality. The more that you change yourself, the more it affects this reality that we live in. And so just by one person becoming conscious affects all beings to come and grow in this organism of consciousness. So, even if it was just one man that we would call Jesus, who became one with the source of the love and light in himself, then that applies for everyone else to be that, because you are that. I seen a Facebook meme that said, walk like you have 3,000 ancestors behind you. No, walk like you have 10 trillion ancestors inside of you, because you are all of these experiences. You are the experience of Christ and Buddha. You are all things in the one. The kingdom of God is not coming with signs to be observed, nor will they say, look, here it is, there it is. For behold, the kingdom of God is in your midst. With the kingdom, we are walking it. It also exists inside of us, because this source and this frequency is within and without, because we are that expression in the expression as an expression. So, you can't say, hey look, there's the kingdom, or there's the kingdom. I can't not